It's small, nothing. That's baboon behavior. I don't believe it. Neither do I. At the time, those lines sounded absurd. But decades later, they would become part of the DNA of one of the sharpest sitcoms ever created. Fawlty Towers wasn't just funny. It was ruthless. Precise. Uncomfortable. And for a show that only lasted 12 episodes, it left a cultural footprint most series with 10 seasons never achieve. So why did it end so abruptly? And what really happened behind the scenes? To understand how Fawlty Towers was nearly taken off the air, we have to go back to a seaside town in 1970, and to a hotel so catastrophically bad that it accidentally became television history. The hotel that started it all. Imagine arriving at a hotel after a long, exhausting day. You expect at least basic politeness. A greeting. A sense that guests are welcome. Now imagine the opposite. That's exactly what happened to John Cleese and members of the Monty Python team when they checked into the Gleneagles Hotel in Torquay while filming Monty Python's Flying Circus. The hotel owner, Donald Sinclair, was not merely unfriendly. He was hostile, suspicious, and astonishingly bad at hospitality. Guests were treated like intruders. Complaints were met with irritation. Even normal behavior seemed to annoy him. One moment became legendary. When Eric Idle accidentally left his briefcase in the lobby, Sinclair became convinced it was a bomb. Instead of checking with staff, he marched outside and threw it over a wall. That wasn't paranoia. That was performance art. Another time, Terry Gilliam used his cutlery in the wrong hand. Sinclair stormed over to correct him, as if poor etiquette were a criminal offense. Cleese watched all of this in disbelief and fascination. Because what Sinclair didn't realize was that he wasn't just running a terrible hotel. He was auditioning for immortality. The birth of Basil Fawlty. Years later, when John Cleese and his then-wife Connie Booth began developing a sitcom, they knew exactly what they wanted at the center of it. An incompetent hotel owner. Short-tempered. Socially oblivious. Obsessed with class and status. Completely incapable of basic customer service. Basil Fawlty was born. While Cleese exaggerated Sinclair's traits for comedic effect, the core personality remained intact. Basil's sarcasm, paranoia, and explosive temper were lifted straight from real life. Ironically, Donald Sinclair never realized he was the inspiration. He passed away in 1981, unaware that his disastrous hospitality had helped create one of the greatest British comedies ever made. Creating Fawlty Towers. Fawlty Towers wasn't the product of one mind, it was a partnership. Cleese and Booth worked meticulously, crafting scripts that were tightly written, farcical, and emotionally precise. Every misunderstanding was deliberate. Every explosion carefully earned. When the show premiered on BBC Two in 1975, critics were confused. Some called it chaotic. One even labeled it a failure. The audience, however, understood immediately. They saw something critics missed. Comedy built on pressure. Timing engineered like clockwork. Characters so exaggerated they felt disturbingly real. Viewers loved Basil's rage, Sybil's dominance, Polly's calm intelligence, and Manuel's disastrous innocence. Still, the BBC nearly cancelled the show after the first 6 episodes. Only repeat airings and word of mouth saved it. A second series arrived 4 years later in 1979. That was it. Just 12 episodes. And somehow, it was enough. Why it worked. Fawlty Towers wasn't just slapstick. Basil wasn't simply rude, he was insecure. Desperate to impress the upper class. Obsessed with appearances. Completely undone by his own behavior. His anger was funny, but it also revealed a man constantly at war with himself. That depth is why the show endured. By 2000, the British Film Institute named Fawlty Towers the greatest British television series of all time. Critics who once dismissed it quietly changed their tune. The episode that sparked outrage. One episode nearly destroyed everything. The Germans. The premise is simple: Basil suffers a concussion. A group of German guests arrives. Basil repeatedly instructs everyone, don't mention the war. Then immediately does exactly that. The infamous moment, Basil goose-stepping through the hotel lobby, mimicking Adolf Hitler, triggered backlash. Some viewers found it offensive. Others accused the show of trivializing World War II. Ironically, many German viewers understood the joke better than critics did. Because the joke was never about Germans. It was about Basil's ignorance. Even decades later, streaming platforms temporarily removed or edited the episode. John Cleese publicly opposed the censorship, explaining that satire targets stupidity, not history. The episode was never banned. And today, it's one of the most quoted moments in British television. Behind-the-scenes reality. The cast chemistry was electric, but life off-camera wasn't always easy. By the second series, Cleese and Booth were divorced, yet continued writing together professionally without public conflict. Prunella Scales, who played Sybil, was nothing like her character, warm, witty, and deeply respected. Andrew Sachs, who played Manuel, endured painful physical comedy. In one scene, Cleese accidentally hit him with a real frying pan, causing injury. Another scene resulted in burns. He never complained. His performance became legendary. What happened to the cast? John Cleese went on to A Fish Called Wanda, 1988, Shrek 2, and more. In 2023, he announced a Fawlty Towers revival with his daughter Camilla Cleese, set for 2024. Connie Booth left acting entirely and became a psychotherapist, choosing a quiet life. Prunella Scales later battled vascular dementia. Her husband Timothy West has spoken openly about her condition. Andrew Sachs passed away in 2016, aged 86. Ballard Berkeley, the Major, died in 1988. Brian Hall, Terry the Chef, died in 2017. Gilly Flower and Renee Roberts passed away in 2009 and 2010. Why Fawlty Towers still matters. Only 12 episodes. Nearly 50 years later. Still quoted. Still debated. Still relevant. Fawlty Towers didn't age perfectly, but it aged honestly. It pushed boundaries. It exposed ignorance. And it trusted the audience to understand the difference. Whether the reboot succeeds or not, one truth remains. The original Fawlty Towers is untouchable. A masterpiece of chaos. A lesson in restraint. And proof that sometimes, the most disastrous hotel stay in history can create comedy immortality.